A janitor's daughter risked her entire future to help an injured boy bleeding out at school, never suspecting that the quiet new student everyone treated like a nobody was actually the hidden heir to a billionaire empire. The silence inside the locker room felt heavier than the metallic smell of blood. On the cold white tiles, a boy lay barely conscious, abandoned by wealthy students who stepped over him as if he didn't exist. For Lena Hayes, the staff scholarship student who learned how to stay invisible, crossing that locker room door wasn't just breaking school rules, it was signing away her education, her mother's job, and the only home they had. She knew that helping him meant losing everything she'd worked for. But as she knelt on the tile and pressed her hands to his wounds, Lena didn't realize she was saving Leo Thorne, the secret son of one of the most powerful men in America, or that her single act of mercy was about to shatter the school, expose buried corruption, and change her life forever. Before we continue, tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories reach. Lena Hayes learned early how to move through Pinecrest Preparatory Academy without leaving marks. She arrived every morning at 6:40, before most of the students and even before some of the teachers, stepping through the side entrance that smelled faintly of disinfectant and old books. Her backpack was light, one notebook, a pen, her phone with a cracked screen, but her pockets always held folded slips of paper, reminders, numbers, things not to forget, tuition deadlines, rent, a note from her mother reminding her to eat before lunch duty. She stopped at the janitor's closet near the science wing, tapped twice, and opened the door. Her mother was already inside, tying her hair back, a radio playing low, static music on the shelf. She looked up and smiled like she always did, quick, reassuring, practiced. "You're early," her mother said, checking her watch anyway. "Bus came fast," Lena said. She set her bag down and helped refill a spray bottle without being asked. They worked side by side in silence for a moment, the kind that came from doing this every day. Her mother broke it first. "I put 20 on the card. Make it last till Friday." Lena nodded. "I will." Her mother hesitated, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded envelope. She didn't open it. She didn't have to. "Electric," she said. "They're patient, for now." Lena took the envelope and slid it into her bag. "I'll pick up an extra shift at the library this weekend." Her mother's hand paused mid-wipe. "Your grades." "I know," Lena said gently. "I'll manage." Her mother studied her face for half a second too long, then nodded. "Just keep your head down today. Vice Principal Davenport had been walking the halls more than usual." That name sat heavy between them. "I always do," Lena said. It wasn't entirely true, but it was close enough. By 7:30, the campus began to fill. Black sedans rolled up to the front drive. Students spilled out laughing, complaining, scrolling. Lena wiped fingerprints off trophy cases as they passed her, careful not to make eye contact, careful not to seem invisible either. Invisible got you stepped on. Seen got you noticed. She lived in the thin space between. At 7:58, she slipped into her first class, sliding into her seat just as the bell rang. Pinecrest liked to call itself a meritocracy. The banners on the walls talked about excellence and leadership and tradition. What they didn't talk about was money, even though money was everywhere, on wrists, in shoes, in the way certain students leaned back in their chairs like the world owed them comfort. Blake Davenport sat 3 rows ahead of her, legs stretched into the aisle, phone out despite the rules. A boy behind him asked him to move his foot. Blake didn't look back. He just pushed harder. The teacher cleared her throat. "Phones away, please." Blake smiled and did nothing. The teacher moved on. That was how it worked. Between classes, Lena stopped by her locker and checked her phone. One missed call from the housing office. She didn't listen to the voicemail. Not yet. She tucked the phone away and headed toward English. In the hallway near the main staircase, a boy tripped, his books scattered across the floor. Laughter rippled outward, soft at first, then louder. "Careful," someone said. "Wouldn't want to scuff the floors." Blake stepped over the books without breaking stride. The boy scrambled to gather his things, face burning. Lena crouched down beside him and handed him a notebook. "Thanks," he muttered, not meeting his eyes. "No problem." When she stood, Blake was watching her. Not with anger, with mild curiosity, like she'd done something unexpected but not important. He smirked. "You know that's a lost cause, right?" Lena met his eyes just long enough to acknowledge the comment. He dropped his stuff. Blake laughed quietly. "See how that balances out?" She didn't answer. She walked away. By late morning, the whispers started. New kid. Heard he transferred from Chicago. No, New York. Foster system, I think. Lena heard it all without hearing it, the way you learn to do. She was at her locker when she noticed the silence first, the kind that spreads instead of settles. A boy stood near the office doors, holding a folded schedule in one hand. He wasn't dressed wrong. Nothing about him screamed attention, but he didn't lean like the others. He stood still, eyes scanning like he was measuring distances. A teacher gestured him forward. "You must be Leo." He nodded once. "This is Pinecrest," the teacher said, as if that explained anything. "You'll find your way." Leo took the schedule and turned. That was when Blake noticed him. Blake leaned off the wall and took 2 casual steps into Leo's path. "You lost." Leo stopped. He looked at Blake, then past him, like he was deciding whether the obstacle was temporary. "I'm fine," Leo said. That's not really an answer. Leo didn't rise to it. He shifted slightly as if to go around. Blake blocked him again, closer now. "You should know how things work here." Leo's jaw tightened. "I'll learn." Something flickered in Blake's eyes. Not anger, interest. Lena watched from her locker, her hand frozen on the combination dial. She'd seen this before. The testing, the slow circling. A bell rang, breaking the moment. Students surged forward and the hallway swallowed them both. Blake laughed and slapped a friend on the shoulder, already bored. Leo moved with the crowd, expression unreadable. In English, Leo took the empty seat near the window. He didn't look around much. He listened. When the teacher asked a question, he answered without raising his hand, correctly. The teacher blinked, then nodded. Lena glanced at him once, then away. At lunch, she sat at the edge of the courtyard, eating half a sandwich and saving the rest. Leo passed by with a tray he barely touched. He sat alone, eyes on his phone, shoulders slightly hunched like he expected interruption. Blake sat with his group near the center tables, loud and comfortable. At one point, he looked over at Leo and said something Lena couldn't hear. His friends laughed. Leo didn't look up. That bothered Blake. After lunch, Lena went to the library for her student aid shift. She stamped returns, reshelved quietly, did everything right. At 2:47, the librarian leaned over. "Can you run these to the locker room office?" she asked, handing her a stack of forms. Lena nodded and took them. The boys' locker room hallway was usually loud. Today, it was quieter than it should have been. She slowed as she approached, sensing it before she heard it, the sharp sound of something hitting metal, then a muffled grunt. She stopped. Another sound, a crash, laughter low and ugly. Lena's hand tightened around the papers. She told herself it wasn't her business. She told herself rules mattered. She told herself her scholarship depended on staying out of trouble. Then she heard someone say Blake's name. She stepped closer. The door was half open. Inside, she saw a sneaker sliding across the floor, a body hitting a bench, someone groaning, breathless. Blake's voice cut through, calm and amused. "I told you, you should have learned faster." Lena didn't know what made her push the door open. Habit, maybe, or the way Leo had answered that question in class like he wasn't afraid to be wrong. The room went still. Blake turned first. "This area's restricted," he said lightly. Lena looked past him. Leo was on the floor, one arm bent wrong, blood at the corner of his mouth. His eyes were open, unfocused, trying to lock onto something. Something old and steady clicked into place inside her, a memory of her grandfather's hands, his voice telling her what to check first, what mattered most. She stepped forward. "Get away from him," she said. Blake stared at her like she'd spoken another language. Then he laughed. "You're serious." She knelt beside Leo without waiting for permission. She pressed 2 fingers to his neck, counted under her breath. Blake's smile faded. "This isn't your problem." Lena didn't look up. "It is now." Leo's eyes found hers. For a second, recognition flickered there. Not of her, but of something she carried. He tried to speak. "Don't," she said quietly. "Save your breath." The silence stretched. Blake stepped closer, his shadow falling over them. "You have no idea what you're doing." Lena finally looked up at him. Her voice didn't shake. "I know exactly what I'm doing." For the first time that day, Blake Davenport looked uncertain. And Leo, barely conscious, watched her like she was the first solid thing he'd seen all day. The rain started just after 3, sudden and hard, drumming against the tall windows like it had somewhere better to be. By 4 o'clock, Pinecrest felt hollow. Lockers stood open and forgotten. The last buses pulled away from the front drive, tires hissing on wet pavement. Lena moved through the east wing with a cart of cleaning supplies, earbuds out, senses sharp. After school hours were when rules got thin and consequences got heavy. She wiped down a row of lockers near the gym, then checked her phone. No new messages. She slid it back into her pocket and pushed the cart toward the staff storage room. That's when she heard it. A sharp metallic crack. Not a dropped locker door, not a basketball, something heavier. Followed by a sound that didn't belong in a school at all. Air forced out of lungs too fast. Lena stopped walking. The noise came again, a body hitting something hard, a low laugh after it. She stood still long enough to confirm it wasn't her imagination. The rain masked everything else, but this cut through. She turned the cart around and headed toward the boys' locker room. Every rule she knew lined up in her head as she walked. No students allowed in locker rooms after hours. Cameras in the hallway. Vice Principal Davenport's office at the corner. Lights probably still on. One wrong move, and it wouldn't just be detention, it would be expulsion. Her scholarship, her mother's job, their apartment. Another sound. Short, broken, human. Lena quickened her pace. The locker room door was ajar. Water pooled on the tile just inside, footprints smeared dark across the floor. The overhead lights buzzed faintly. "Hello?" she said, testing the word. No answer. She pushed the door open with her foot. The smell hit first. Sweat, metal, something coppery. Leo lay near the benches, half on his side, one leg bent awkwardly. His shirt was torn at the shoulder, knuckles raw and split. Blood streaked his lip and dripped onto the tile beneath his chin. No one else was there. For a moment, Lena couldn't move. Her brain caught up faster than her body, cataloging details the way she'd been taught to. Position, breathing, color. He was alive. Barely. She dropped to her knees beside him. "Leo," she said, low and firm. His eyelids fluttered. He tried to focus and failed. "Don't move, just listen to me." She checked his pulse again, slower this time. Too fast. She pressed lightly along his ribs. He flinched and sucked in a breath that ended in a sharp hiss.
"Okay," she murmured. "Okay." Her grandfather's voice rose up in her head, clear as if he were standing behind her. "Check airway. Stop the bleeding. Don't panic. Panic helps no one." She pulled her hoodie off and pressed it gently against his mouth. "Hold this. Light pressure." His hand shook as he did. "Good," she said. "You're doing good." She glanced toward the door. The hallway camera was mounted just outside. She could picture it perfectly. The red light, always blinking. Someone would see her. Someone would ask why she was here. Another voice echoed in her memory. This one, her mother's. "Keep your head down today." Lena swallowed. Footsteps approached. She froze. The steps stopped just outside the doorway. A shadow crossed the threshold. Blake Davenport leaned against the doorframe, rainwater dripping from his jacket, hair still perfect. He took in the scene like it was a painting. "You shouldn't be here," he said calmly. Lena didn't look up. "Neither should you." Blake smiled. "That's the difference. I can explain my way out of it." He stepped inside, careful not to slip. "You know there are cameras, right?" "Yes," Lena said. "And rules?" "Yes." "And consequences." She finally looked at him. "He needs help." Blake shrugged. He should have thought of that earlier. Leo shifted, a small sound escaping him. Blake crouched slightly, enough to look him in the face. "You okay, new kid?" Leo didn't answer. Blake straightened. "See? He's fine." Lena stood up. She was aware of how small she looked next to Blake, how exposed she was without her hoodie. Her hands were steady anyway. "I'm calling an ambulance," she said. Blake's smile thinned. "You won't." "I will." Blake tilted his head. "If you do, the school asks questions. The school calls parents. The school checks records." His eyes flicked down to her ID badge. "Staff scholarship, janitor's kid." The words landed exactly where he meant them to. "You walk away," Blake continued, voice almost kind, "and this becomes a misunderstanding. You stay, and it becomes chaos. Guess who they blame?" Lena looked down at Leo. His fingers were still clenched around her hoodie. He was trying not to pass out. She thought of the envelope in her bag, the electric bill, the voicemail she hadn't listened to. She thought of her grandfather's Purple Heart tucked away in a drawer at home, earned by someone who'd never walked away from a bleeding body. Blake watched her, confident again. Last chance. Lena reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. Blake's eyes hardened. "Don't." She didn't dial. She held the phone up so he could see the cracked screen, the shaking reflection of his face. "I'm not leaving," she said. Blake stepped closer, lowering his voice.
You think this ends today? You think doing the right thing makes you safe? She met his gaze. No. That seemed to amuse him. He laughed quietly. Good, then you understand. He backed toward the door. You won't get a thank you for this. I don't need one. Blake paused at the threshold. Vice Principal Davenport will hear about this. I'm sure he will. Blake left, the door swinging shut behind him. The room felt smaller without him, louder somehow. Lena knelt back down beside Leo. Hey, she said, stay with me. His eyes opened again, glassy but present. You shouldn't, she whispered. She shook her head. I know. She adjusted her grip, bracing his neck the way she'd been taught, careful, precise. You're going to be okay, but I need you to stay awake. He managed a weak breath. Why help? The question hit harder than Blake's threat. Lena didn't hesitate. Because you're hurt. That seemed to satisfy him. His grip loosened slightly. She slid her phone back into her pocket, not to call yet, not while cameras were watching, but she stood and grabbed a towel from the supply cart, tearing it cleanly. She pressed it to his ribs, firm but controlled. Listen to me, she said. If anyone asks, you fell. You hear me? He nodded once. The rain outside intensified, pounding against the building like a countdown. Lena took a breath, squared her shoulders, and made her choice. Whatever came next, she wasn't walking away. The sirens arrived 10 minutes later, slicing through the rain and into the quiet halls like an accusation. By the time the paramedics wheeled Leo out on a stretcher, Vice Principal Davenport was already there, suit immaculate, expression carved from a fence. He didn't look at Leo first. He looked at Lena. What exactly do you think you were doing? He demanded. Lena stood near the lockers, hands still streaked with blood that wasn't hers. He was injured. That does not answer my question. I was helping him. Vice Principal Davenport's eyes flicked to the paramedics, then back to her. You violated school policy. You entered a restricted area after hours. You interfered with an incident you were not authorized to handle. The lead paramedic glanced between them. Sir, the student would have been in serious trouble if she hadn't stabilized him. Vice Principal Davenport ignored that. We will handle this internally. Leo turned his head slightly, eyes finding Lena's. His voice was weak but clear. She didn't... Enough, Davenport snapped. Lena took a step forward. He needs someone with him. He has staff. You do not belong here. The stretcher rolled away. The doors swung shut. Just like that, Leo was gone. Vice Principal Davenport turned fully to Lena now. My office, now. They walked in silence down the hallway. The rain blurred the windows, turning the campus into streaks of gray. When the door closed behind them, Davenport didn't sit. You have caused chaos today. Chaos this school does not tolerate. I followed basic first aid. He could have died. Davenport's mouth tightened. You are not a medic. You are a student on a conditional scholarship. Conditions you have violated. That's not why... Do not interrupt me. He moved behind his desk and opened a folder already waiting there. Effective immediately, your scholarship is revoked. You are expelled for gross misconduct and violation of school safety protocols. The words landed flat, unreal. You can't, Lena said quietly. There's no investigation. Davenport looked up, eyes cold. There doesn't need to be. She stood there, waiting for the rest, for an explanation, for a reason that made sense. There wasn't one. And your mother, he continued, flipping a page, has been terminated for failure to control her dependent and for allowing unauthorized access to restricted areas. Lena's breath left her all at once. She wasn't even here. She is responsible for you. This school is generous, but not naive. He slid 2 papers across the desk. Sign. Security will escort you out. Lena didn't move. Davenport leaned forward. You have already taken more than you were offered. Don't take more time. She signed. The walk to the parking lot took longer than it should have. Security didn't speak to her. Neither did she. Her phone buzzed once. Her mother. She answered. I know, her mother said before Lena could speak. I'm sorry, Lena said. There was a pause. Not anger, not disappointment, just exhaustion. Come meet me at the hospital, her mother said. We'll figure out the rest later. The hospital waiting room smelled like antiseptic and old coffee. Lena sat beside her mother, both of them damp from the rain, hands folded, not touching. A doctor finally approached. She's stable, she said. Concussion, fractured ribs, internal bruising. He's lucky. Lena closed her eyes for a second. Can we see him? Her mother asked. The doctor nodded, briefly. Leo lay pale against white sheets, eyes closed, chest rising shallowly. Machines hummed softly beside him. When Lena stepped closer, his eyes opened. You stayed, he murmured. Yes. His gaze shifted to her mother. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't mean to cause trouble. Her mother's expression softened instantly. You didn't cause anything. He swallowed. I don't have anyone to call. The words hung there. No parents? Lena asked. He shook his head. Foster homes. Last one didn't want me. He looked away. They won't care. Lena watched him say it like it was a fact, not a wound. The nurse cleared her throat. He can be discharged tomorrow morning if there are no complications. Lena's mother glanced at Lena, then back at Leo. Do you have somewhere to go? He hesitated. I can figure something out. Lena's mother didn't hesitate. You can stay with us, just for tonight. Leo looked startled. I don't want to be a problem. You're not, she said firmly. One night. We'll see after. Leo nodded slowly. Thank you. Lena met her mother's eyes. There was fear there, and resolve. They left the hospital together later that night, rain finally easing, the city quiet around them. Lena didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew one thing. Walking away had never been an option. The apartment door stuck the way it always did, catching halfway before Lena leaned her shoulder into it and pushed. Sorry, she said automatically. Leo shook his head. It's fine. Her mother set the grocery bag down on the small counter and flicked the light switch twice before it caught. The kitchen came alive in pieces. One bulb over the sink, the hum of the fridge, the rattle of old pipes settling. Sit, her mother said to Leo, nodding toward the table. Don't argue. He didn't. He lowered himself carefully into the chair, moving like someone whose body no longer trusted itself. Lena noticed without pointing it out. She grabbed a glass, filled it with water, and slid it toward him. Small sips, she said. Yes, ma'am, he replied, almost smiling. Her mother shot him a look. Don't charm me. I'll make soup. I'm not charming. I'm obeying medical advice. Lena turned away to hide her grin. They moved around each other cautiously, like strangers sharing borrowed space. Her mother stirred the pot. Lena changed out of her wet clothes and returned with a clean hoodie for Leo, setting it on the back of his chair without comment. The bathroom's down the hall. Hot water takes a minute. Okay. While he was gone, her mother lowered her voice. You sure about this? Lena nodded. Just one night. Her mother studied her face. You did what you had to do. The words landed heavier than comfort. Lena swallowed and reached for 3 bowls. Leo returned wearing the hoodie, sleeves pushed up carefully. He sat where he'd been told and ate slowly, thanking her mother after every few bites like he expected the food to disappear if he didn't. You don't have to do that, Lena said. Habit, he replied. Food used to come with conditions. Her mother didn't ask which ones. She just refilled his bowl. After dinner, Lena cleared the table. Leo stood to help and immediately winced. Sit, Lena said. I'm fine. She raised an eyebrow. He sat. They ended up in the living room, Lena on the floor with her back against the couch, Leo stretched awkwardly along the cushions, her mother folding laundry nearby. The TV stayed off. The quiet wasn't uncomfortable, just careful. Leo watched Lena do her homework, switching between assignments with practiced efficiency. You work fast, he said. I don't. I just don't stop. He nodded like that made sense. At some point, her mother stood and disappeared into the bedroom. When she came back, she was holding a small box, the kind that once held something important and now held only memory. She set it on the table without ceremony. Lena, can you put this away? I don't want it out tonight. Lena froze for half a second, then stood. Yeah. Leo didn't ask, but his eyes followed the box. Later, when her mother went to shower, Leo shifted on the couch. I didn't mean to pry earlier, he said. You didn't. The box. Lena glanced toward the hallway, then back at him. She picked it up and opened it just enough to slide something out. The metal caught the light as it rested in her palm, dull gold worn smooth at the edges. She didn't say what it was. She didn't have to. My grandfather, she said. He taught me first aid. Leo leaned forward slightly, careful of his ribs. He didn't touch it, he just looked. He would have liked you, he said quietly. Lena blinked, surprised. You didn't know him. I know the kind of people who teach someone to stay, Leo replied. She closed the box and put it away. Later that night, when Lena and her mother were asleep, Leo lay awake on the couch, his phone glowing softly in his hand. He typed one message. "It's me. I'm safe. Handled the school quietly. No names. Help the family anonymously." The reply came almost instantly. "Understood. We're monitoring. You shouldn't be there." Leo stared at the ceiling. "I know," he typed back. He turned the phone face down and closed his eyes, guilt settling heavier than the pain in his ribs. Down the hall, Lena slept lightly, the future uncertain, unaware that the boy on her couch carried more secrets than bruises, and that one night would change everything. Morning came too fast. Lena barely slept. She lay awake until the sky lightened, listening to the building wake up. Pipes knocking, a neighbor's alarm bleeding through the wall, her mother moving quietly in the kitchen. When she finally sat up, her phone was already buzzing. Unknown numbers, group chats she hadn't been part of yesterday, names she recognized only because they'd never used them on her before. "Did you hear what really happened? They say the kid in the locker room almost died. Davenport's covering it up. Lena Hayes got expelled." She stared at the screen until it dimmed. Her mother stood in the doorway. "You don't have to go in today." "I know, but I need to." Leo was already dressed, moving carefully, eyes sharper than they'd been the night before. He'd barely touched breakfast. "You should stay here," Lena said. "Doctor said rest." "I'll be fine." Her mother hesitated. "You're not a student anymore." Leo met her gaze. "I need to be there." They rode in silence. The rain had cleared, leaving the road slick and bright. Pinecrest rose ahead of them, all clean lines and banners, pretending nothing had happened. At the front gates, something was off. Two black SUVs idled at the curb. Men in suits stood nearby, scanning the grounds. Students slowed as they passed, whispers rippling outward like heat. "Is there a threat? Did someone die? Why is security here?" Blake Davenport leaned against the main steps, laughing with his friends, confident intact. He looked refreshed, untouched. When he spotted Lena, his smile widened just enough to sting. "Well," he said loudly, "if it isn't the hero." A few students snickered. "Thought you were gone. Rules must not apply to everyone." Lena didn't respond. She felt Leo shift beside her. The bell rang. A hush followed. One of the men in suits stepped forward. Leo Thorne. The name landed wrong. Leo stepped ahead of Lena without looking back. Another man opened the rear door of the SUV. A third adjusted his earpiece. The courtyard froze, attention snapping into place. Blake frowned. "What is this?" Leo turned. The change wasn't in his clothes. It was in his posture. The hesitation was gone. The apology in his eyes was gone. What stood there now was calm, precise, immovable. "I'm here to attend class," Leo said. His voice carried without effort. Blake laughed once. "You're funny." A woman in a tailored coat approached, tablet in hand. "Blake Davenport, you are requested in the administration building, now." Blake scoffed. "By who?" "By the board," she replied. That wiped the smile off his face. Vice Principal Davenport emerged from the doors, face tight. "What is going on here?" The woman turned to him. "Robert Thorne sends his regards." The name hit like a dropped plate. Vice Principal Davenport paled. "This is a mistake." "No," she said calmly. "The mistake was yesterday." Students crowded closer now, phones raised. Blake took a step back. "He attacked me," he said quickly. "He caused trouble." Leo met his eyes. "You didn't think anyone would believe me." Blake's jaw clenched. "You're nobody." Leo didn't respond. He didn't need to. Another man in his suit stepped forward. "Blake Davenport, you are suspended pending investigation for aggravated assault, intimidation, and harassment." A murmur surged through the crowd. Vice Principal Davenport raised his voice. "This school will handle discipline internally." The woman turned to him. "Not anymore." She tapped her tablet. "As of this morning, Pinecrest Preparatory Academy has entered new ownership." The courtyard erupted. Vice Principal Davenport's mouth opened, then closed. "You can't." "We already did," she said. "Your employment has been terminated, effective immediately." He looked around wildly. "This is an abuse of power." Leo spoke, quieter now. "You abused it first." Security stepped in. Blake tried to pull away. "This isn't over," he snapped, eyes finding Lena in the crowd. "You think this changes who you are?" Lena didn't answer. She couldn't. Her world was tilting. As Blake was escorted away, Vice Principal Davenport followed, his protests dissolving into noise. Students stood stunned, unsure whether to clap or scatter. Leo finally turned to Lena. "I need to explain," he said. She stared at him like she was seeing a stranger wearing a familiar face. You lied, she said. His jaw tightened. I didn't tell you everything. That's not the same, she replied. Security cleared the courtyard. Classes were suspended for the morning. The banners fluttered uselessly overhead. Lena took a step back. I need air, she said. Leo watched her go, understanding too late that power could fix many things, but not the look on her face when the mask came off. Lena didn't stop walking until the noise faded. She cut through the side courtyard, past the science wing, down the narrow path students rarely used unless they were trying not to be seen. The morning air felt sharp in her lungs. Her hands shook, and she hated that more than anything else. Lena, she kept going. Lena, please. She stopped near the maintenance gate, fingers curling around the cold metal railing. She didn't turn. You don't get to say my name like that. Leo slowed behind her. He didn't step closer. He didn't touch her. He stood where she could walk away again if she wanted to. I know, he said. She turned then, eyes bright and furious. You let me believe you had nothing. You let my mother open our door to you like you were... Her voice caught. She forced it steady. Like you were alone. I was alone, Leo said quietly. She laughed once, sharp. You had a security team waiting in black SUVs? They weren't waiting for me. They came because I asked them to. That's not better. No, he agreed. It isn't. She paced, anger burning off in jagged steps. Do you know what it felt like, standing there while everyone stared, watching them drag Blake away like this was some movie where the villain finally loses? She turned on him again. I didn't ask for that. I didn't ask to be part of your world. I know, he said, and I'm sorry. The word didn't come with explanations. It didn't come with defenses. It sat there, bare. She crossed her arms. Sorry for what, exactly? For letting you take the risk. For letting you think you were protecting someone who couldn't protect himself. Her jaw tightened. You couldn't protect yourself? I didn't want to. That made her pause. He took a breath, careful. If I'd shown up as myself, Blake would have smiled and moved on. The school would have closed ranks. You would have stayed invisible. I thought... He stopped, shook his head. I'm not justifying it. I'm telling you why I didn't stop it. She stared at him, searching for arrogance. She didn't find it. That almost made it worse. You still used me.
Yes. The word hit hard in its simplicity. Leo reached into his jacket slowly, deliberately, like he was disarming something. He pulled out the small box. I shouldn't have this, he said, but I wanted you to know I understood what you were giving up. He opened it and held out the Purple Heart medal. Lena's breath left her. She took it without thinking, fingers closing around the familiar weight. The medal was warm from his hand. You went through my things, she said, softer now. I saw it on the table. I didn't touch it until your mother gave it to me to put away. I looked up what it meant. She swallowed. It means you don't leave someone bleeding on the floor. I know. They stood there, the space between them heavy and deliberate. I can't trust you, Lena said finally. I know, Leo said again. She tucked the medal into her pocket. You didn't ask. That doesn't mean you're forgiven. I'm not asking. I don't deserve that yet. She nodded once. Good. A bell rang somewhere on campus, useless and late. I'm going home, Lena said. I won't follow you, Leo said. She turned to leave, then stopped. Don't fix things for me behind my back. He met her eyes. I won't. It was the closest thing to a promise he could give. She walked away, the distance between them no longer filled with mystery, just the quiet weight of something broken but not gone. And Leo stayed where he was, watching the path empty, knowing that power had given him a voice, but honesty would have to earn him back into her life. The car was too quiet. Lena sat in the back seat, hands folded in her lap, watching the city slide past the tinted window. They hadn't asked her to dress up. They hadn't told her what this meeting was about. Leo sat across from her, eyes forward, saying nothing. That felt intentional. The car stopped in front of a building that didn't announce itself. No gates, no guards in sight, just a doorman who nodded once and stepped aside. Inside, everything was calm in a way that felt earned. Robert Thorne stood near the window when they entered, jacket off, sleeves rolled neatly to the forearms. He turned slowly, taking Lena in without smiling, without frowning. Lena Hayes, he said, thank you for coming. His voice was even, not warm, not cold. You asked, Lena replied. He gestured toward the table. Sit. She did. Leo remained standing until his father glanced at him. "You too," Robert said. "This isn't a tribunal." That earned a flicker of something from Leo, but he sat.
Robert poured water into 3 glasses and slid one toward Lena. "I hear you don't like being fixed." Lena didn't reach for the glass. "I like being asked." Robert nodded, as if noting a data point. "Fair." He took his seat across from her. "Tell me why you went into that locker room." Lena didn't hesitate. Someone was hurt. "That's not the question," he said mildly. "Many people hear things they don't respond to." She met his eyes. "I didn't have the luxury not to." "Because?" "Because I knew what to do." Robert leaned back slightly. "And if you hadn't, I would have stayed anyway." Leo shifted, but Robert raised a hand, silencing him. "You risked your education, your mother's job, your housing, all of it." "Yes." "For a boy you barely knew." Lena's jaw tightened. "For a person." Robert watched her for a long moment. "Do you often make decisions that cost you more than they should?" "I make decisions that let me live with myself." That landed. Robert glanced briefly at Leo, then back at Lena. "Do you resent my son?" "Yes," she said. Leo inhaled sharply. Robert didn't react. Why? "Because he knew what power could do and chose not to stop it until it suited him," Lena said. "And because he let me believe I was saving someone who had no safety net." Robert nodded once. "And yet you're here." "I'm here because he asked, not because he's rich, not because you're powerful. If this is about gratitude, we are done." A pause. Then Robert smiled, not wide but genuine. "Good," he said. Lena frowned. "Good what?" He leaned forward, forearms on the table. "You didn't thank me. You didn't soften your answers. You didn't pretend. Most people do." "I don't know how," she said. "I suspected as much." Robert straightened. "Here's what's already been done. Pinecrest is no longer run by men who think silence is order. Your mother has been reinstated, no, promoted, director of operations, with benefits." Lena's breath caught. "You didn't have to." "I did," he said calmly, "because what happened to her was retaliation. I don't reward loyalty, I correct damage." He continued before she could speak. "Your scholarship has been converted to a full academic grant, no conditions tied to compliance, performance only." Lena stared at him. "Why?" "Because you didn't ask for any of it. And because when my son was bleeding, you acted like his life mattered more than your future." Leo looked down. Robert's gaze sharpened. "If you had asked for money, favors, protection, I would have ended this conversation." "I didn't," Lena said. "I know." Silence settled again, different now. "There's an internship opening this summer. Policy analysis. Paid. Earned. You can say no." Lena finally reached for the glass of water, hands steady now. "I'll think about it." "That's the correct answer," said Robert. He stood. "You're not indebted to us, Lena Hayes, and my son has something to earn back." Leo looked up, surprised. Robert placed a hand briefly on his shoulder. "Don't waste it." He turned back to Lena. "You passed." "Passed what?" she asked. Robert smiled again. "You'll realize it later." As they left, Lena didn't feel smaller. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, without being claimed. The changes didn't arrive with fireworks. They came quietly, in emails sent during business hours, in revised paperwork printed on clean letterhead, in conversations that ended with handshakes instead of warnings. Lena's mother came home one evening and set her bag down slowly, like she wasn't sure the floor would hold it. "They gave me an office," she said. Lena looked up from the table. "An office?" Her mother nodded. "With a door and a budget." She laughed once, breathless. "I don't know what to do with a budget." She stood and hugged her, careful, like the moment might break if she moved too fast. The scholarship notice came the next day. No apology, no justification, just a statement of fact. Full academic grant, renewable annually, based on performance alone. Lena read it twice, then folded it and put it away. The internship offer followed, delivered by a woman who spoke to Lena like she expected an answer, not gratitude. "Think about it," she said. "If you want it, it's yours. If not, that's fine too." That part unsettled Lena the most. She walked through campus differently now, not because the floors had changed, but because people had. Teachers made eye contact. Students paused when she passed, unsure which version of her to address. She hated that. After class one afternoon, she found Leo waiting near the library steps, hands in his pockets, posture open but careful. "I wasn't sure you'd talk to me," he said. "I'm not sure I am," she replied. Then she sighed. "But we can try." They sat on the steps, far enough apart to keep things clear. "I won't hide things anymore," Leo said. "Ask me anything." She studied him. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I wanted one place where I wasn't a name," he said, "and because once I told you, I couldn't undo it." "That's not an excuse," she said. "No," he agreed. "It's just the truth." She nodded slowly. "I don't want surprises. I don't want masks." They sat in silence for a moment, watching students drift past. "I'm not part of your world," Lena said. "I don't want you to be. I want to meet you where you are." She looked at him then, really looked. "That's going to take time." "I have time." She stood. "Good." They walked back toward the building, not together, not apart, just aligned enough to keep going. The ground beneath Lena's feet was shifting. For the first time, she wasn't sure where she'd land, and for once, she wasn't afraid to find out.
They didn't become something overnight. That was the first boundary. Lena set it on a Tuesday evening, sitting across from Leo at a small cafe near campus, books spread between them like a buffer. "I'm not rushing this," she said. Leo nodded immediately. "Okay." No argument, no charm, just acceptance. "That means no surprises," she continued. "No fixing things without telling me. No disappearing and then reappearing with solutions." "I won't," he said. She watched him closely. "You don't get to protect me by deciding for me." "I know. I've done enough deciding." That was the second boundary. They studied together sometimes, walked without touching, shared food without claiming space. He learned how she took her coffee. She learned he hated being driven everywhere. One night, she told him about her grandfather without opening the box again. Another night, he told her about boarding schools where he'd learned how to be invisible in rooms full of people. He didn't soften it. She didn't ask him to. When someone stared at them on campus, Leo stepped back instead of closer. When his name opened doors, he waited for her to decide whether to walk through them. That was the third boundary. They argued once, quietly, about whether power could ever be clean. "It always costs something," Lena said. "Sometimes it costs more to refuse it," Leo replied. They sat with that, neither trying to win. One afternoon, Lena handed Leo a copy of her internship contract. "I'm doing this on my terms," she said. He read it, then slid it back. "I'm proud of you." Not "I helped," not "we," just that. The trust grew in moments no one else saw. Returned texts, kept promises, questions answered without flinching. When Leo finally reached for her hand, he asked first. She said yes. Not because he was powerful, because he listened, because he stayed, because choosing each other didn't feel like surrender. It felt like consent. Lena returned to Pinecrest on a Monday that felt ordinary enough to trust. No announcements marked her arrival. No one cleared a path. She walked through the front doors with her backpack over one shoulder, the security desk nodding at her like she belonged there, which she did, now, without footnotes. Blake Davenport's name lived only in rumor. Someone said he'd transferred. Someone else said his parents were fighting it. Vice Principal Davenport's office was empty, his nameplate gone, the door locked like it had never mattered who sat behind it. Classes settled into a rhythm. Teachers called on Lena without hesitation, not to test her, not to display her, just because she raised her hand. Between periods, students still looked at her, but differently. Not with curiosity sharpened by gossip, but with the kind of recognition that comes when someone refuses to shrink. She didn't correct them, she didn't perform. At lunch, she sat where she wanted. Some days alone, some days not. When she walked past the trophy case, she saw her reflection and didn't flinch. That mattered more than she expected. Her mother worked longer hours now, came home tired in a different way.
She talked about maintenance schedules and staffing meetings, about systems that worked when people bothered to care. There was food in the fridge without careful counting. The electric bill stayed paid. Security felt strange at first, like wearing a coat that didn't quite fit yet. Lena adjusted. She found Leo waiting for her near the library steps again, hands in his pockets, hair still a little too neat from a meeting he hadn't wanted to attend. "You done for the day?" he asked. "Yeah." They walked without hurrying, steps falling into an easy rhythm. Students passed them, some recognizing him, some not. He didn't acknowledge either. "I got accepted," Lena said, casual. "Internship?" She nodded. "I start in June." "That's good," he said. No fanfare, just fact. They stopped at the edge of campus, where the sidewalk gave way to the city. Traffic moved steadily, indifferent. "This doesn't mean things are simple," Lena said. "I don't want simple. I want honest." She considered him, then reached into her bag and pulled out the small box. She opened it, checked the metal, then closed it again. "I keep this because it reminds me who I am, not because of what it's worth." "I know," he said. She slipped her hand into his. This time, she didn't ask. He squeezed once, gentle, grounding. They stood there for a moment, not framed like a victory, not paused like an ending, just two people who had chosen to stay. And for the first time in her life, Lena felt something settle instead of threaten to disappear. Not safety handed to her, safety she'd earned, and a future she was ready to step into one deliberate step at a time. And that's where we leave Lena, walking out of Pinecrest not as someone surviving in the shadows, but as someone who knows she belongs in her own future. When I share a journey like hers, I hope it gives you a quiet moment to step away from whatever you're carrying and just breathe for a while. I'd love to know what you were doing while listening. Maybe you were driving home after a long day, sitting with a warm cup of coffee, or winding down in the quiet of the evening. Drop a line in the comments. I really do read every one. And if you'd like to make sure our paths cross again, liking the video and subscribing to Soul Strength Stories makes a real difference. We're always working to tell these stories better, so feel free to share your thoughts below. Until next time, take care.